Geek Stuff Games.
Greetings, geeks. It's Devin with Geek Stuff Games, and I'm here with Justin Navaro, one of our local players who's been playing this list right here. He's been having some success with it, and I wanted him to come down and talk a little bit about it. I believe you lost one match in the past month with this build?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Alright, so take it away, and if you need any help, I'll lead you forward.
Alright, cool. Yeah, so this is pretty much your standard Mardu mid-range build with some twists and caveats. We got our standard 4 of Thoughtseize, because it's the best card in standard. Not as good as Basic Land Swamp, but up there. Seek of the Way is really good in combination with the massive removal. Sweet. You get a lot of triggers, get a lot of life back. Butcher's really good. Yep, Butcher's really good. Gives you a lot of options. So I guess what differs here is starting with the Ash Cloud Phoenix.
Yeah.
So I like running him because really there's only a few things in standard that effectively one-for-one him. That being Absent Charm, Devouring Light, and Change of the Rocks. And oftentimes...
And you feel comfortable that if they're using their Devouring Light, their Absent Charm, to get rid of Ash Cloud Phoenix, you're perfectly fine with taking that card away for that Ash Cloud Phoenix.
Right. If they one-for-one it, it's great. But oftentimes they don't have... Again, against a lot of decks, they don't have a good response for it. Yeah. And the main idea of the deck that I had was that everything that is not Seek of the Way is a threat. So obviously you got Rabblemaster. He's an army in a can. He'll kill people on his own.
An army in a can.
He's an army in a can. You got Zurgo, which is my favorite. So Zurgo's my one of.
Zurgo and Hushwing Griff were the main deck calls that I wanted a little explanation for. So please tell me more about Zurgo.
Okay, Zurgo, he's a pretty phenomenal one of. He's getting a little bit less awesome as Bioblade becomes more common, but oftentimes people don't expect him, and he can be a ball of lightning that will persist for a while. So there's been a lot of games where if you got Zurgo in hand and they don't really know what you're playing, you'll throw Rabblemasters in there in front of their removal. You'll throw Butchers in front of their removal. So when you get to Zurgo, it puts them
They're
on
out
the
of removal, especially with the playset of Thoughtseize Suite. Okay.
So it puts them on a pretty quick clock.
Now you were running that as a 2 of, is that correct?
Yeah. I dropped it down to a 1 of because I wanted to add Mardu Charm, or I wanted to bump up the amount of Mardu Charm I ran. Primarily because this deck has a really hard time against quick decks. Such as Boss Sly, and Boss Sly is it's a rough matchup. You got a lot of tap lands. You got 3, 7, 9, 11 tap lands, and you got a decent amount of pain lands in there.
All right, now why not full art on the Swamp and the Plains? That's my big question.
Well, sometimes you got to go with the Cons art and Theros art respectively.
All right,
that's really all I got to say about that.
Okay. So Mardu Charm based on the amount of that shift you're seeing to that Boss Sly list.
Yeah, it also gives you a good amount of variety of choice, which is really good. So a lot of the time it's blow up something for 4 damage, and that's fine. It's probably the weakest removal in the suite if you use that for that purpose.
Yeah.
But against a red deck, and you drop when they swing in with their guys or against mono black aggros, little plays that sees it still does see play.
So what is your go-to mode?
Go-to mode for this? Most of the time, if I'm playing against a mid-range deck, it kills Anafenza. It kills Anafenza. It kills Fleece Mainline. It oftentimes will kill the big stuff against the Absent aggro. Against the Absent mid-range, oftentimes you're going to duress them because you want to get rid of their Elspeth.
Instant speed duress.
Instant speed duress at the end of their turn. Yeah, you want to get rid of their Elspeth.
And turn, draw step,
and your draw
step. This is a little bit better than Vendilion Clay.
Yeah, a little bit. All right, so that's the useful part.
Now, Hushwing Griff in the main. Please explain.
All right, so you've got and as I've said before, this deck is threats and removal. So Hushwing is one of the meta calls that's not. It isn't seen as a threat, but oftentimes I've killed people with it. So you play a lot of the time. You're going to be sitting turn 3, and if you're lucky enough to play Seeker, you get to sit behind a suite of removal. Yeah. You get to sit behind this. You get to sit behind your Mardu Charms, your Crackling Dooms, Bioblade, Lightning Strike, and if they don't do anything, you get to Hushwing Griff at the end of their turn, and nobody ever wants to kill it. Nobody wants to downfall. It feels bad. You murders cut that thing, it feels bad. It's a 2/1 flyer. It doesn't do anything. But in a meta where it's all Wingmate Rock, Siege Rhino, Hornets, that stopping battlefield triggers is really important, and it makes them use their removal on this guy.
On the Hushwing Griff as opposed to your Butcher of the Horde, your Seeker of the Way.
Yeah, or your Rival Master, or your Zergo, etc.
Okay.
But oftentimes that issue of people not wanting to do it will let you swing in for free damage. You'll get to sit there. I've had games where I'll do 8 damage with the thing before they kill it. Because they don't want to do it. It's a bad...
Mentally, you think, this is a bad play. Yeah. I don't want to waste my removal on a 2-1 flash.
Yeah, it feels bad. But it ends up working out well. I've never boarded it out. Even against Mono Red. They jump in with their guy, and you flash in and you trade with a Rival Master. It's an unexpected card, and that's kind of what the deck is designed to do.
Is just be unexpected.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that primarily.
And then Sorin...
Sorin's just good.
Just good.
Yeah. I'm personally not a huge... I've had a lot of people ask me why I don't run Hordling Outburst.
That was going to be my follow-up question.
Oh, okay. I personally don't like the card a lot in this list, and it probably is. It is really good with Seeker. You get a lot of value.
Yeah.
Your stuff doesn't get Lightning Strike.
And with Butcher.
Right. But the problem I had with it was... That in tandem with Sorin's nice, but that's kind of I always run the assumption that it's never Magical Christmas Lane for me, and I only have one thing on the field at a time, and top decking that kind of sucks.
Okay.
And I guess you can make the same argument for Thoughtseize, but it's too good not to play. But I wanted everything in the deck to either be removal or threats, and Hordling Outburst is not a thing that's going to win the game. It's not going to win the game on its own.
It's not a Hushwing Grift.
It's not a Hushwing Grift, right? Yeah. And, people really like to sack the stuff to this, but... The problem I find with Butcher is that, and why a lot of people don't like it is they say you invest too much, you 2-for-1 yourself. And oftentimes, the only time I've sacked stuff to Butcher is the tokens from Rival Master. I'll let it sit there as just a 5/4 flyer. It's good.
For 4, that's fine.
That's good. That's like Desecration Demon of the last standard. The other stuff makes it great when they're tapped out, but you don't want to 2-for-1 yourself. Yeah, it's easy overcommit.
Now, how comfortable do you feel with your mana base?
It's pretty good. It's very consistent. I found that I don't want to run too many of the Pain lands. I actually think I have a Caves floating around somewhere.
Yeah, 2 Caves, 3 Battlefield.
Yeah, so it gives me enough to get me on my split. I've got the 2 Bloodstained Mire to get me there, or to get me the reds. I think I've got 1 Swamp in the deck to fetch 4 because I don't have a ton of double black. I think Bileblite's the only one. Yeah. And oftentimes the temples, like a very common play is and since the format's so slow, is you can temple, you can scry, next turn drop a tap land and Thoughtseize.
Because you have 9 come into play tap lands, it's rough. Mm-hmm. But you feel confident enough that the deck from say turns 3 to 7 is so prime that you don't care about losing that tempo. Right.
And even with the the hardest matchup I found for this deck with the tweaks is still Abzan aggro because they can get under you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But the inclusion of Mardu Charm has really made it so the aggro strategies have a lot harder of a time when you 2-for-1 them by making your soldiers the first strike and gang blocking.
All right. Then I got one last question before we wrap things up.
Sure.
Sideboard. Yeah. Let's talk about the...
Let's take a look. This has caused a lot of laughter and camaraderie amongst people there.
Please tell me there's an island in it.
Oh, at least one.
Okay. I mean, no deck is complete without that island.
I agree. Okay, so to start off, we got 2 Stormbreath Dragon. Oftentimes this will replace Zergo after game 1 when people kind of know your strategy and maybe they're boarding in more Absent Charms, and then you're
boarding this in.
You're boarding that in to counter.
Because what answers the Phoenix doesn't answer this.
Right. And the nice part about the way the creature base is set up is you need very specific removal for every card that you play, and if you can play things on tempo, or if you play things on curve, oftentimes people stumble over the removal and you can get in for the damage. Okay. So Stormbreath oftentimes comes in, replaces Zergo and something else. This is one everyone likes. Everyone likes the Deflecting Palm. Everyone likes that. So, the nice part about the Deflecting Palm I think is really good in the meta. I don't know why people don't play it. So its primary use is Blue-White Heroic. It does not target. So even if they've got God's Willing in their hand, they're swinging you with an 8/8.
It targets the damage, correct?
Right. It targets the damage. So you're doing it as oftentimes a huge life swing against Blue-White Heroic. But even if you're just throwing it out for a stoke, on a deck that's trying to tempo you out, you can get there.
You just made a huge swing because you're trying to race them, and that's, I'm not losing 5, you're losing 5.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so that oftentimes is really good. Glare's a pretty common staple.
Yeah, it doesn't need much explanation.
Up there, Hero's Downfall takes care of Stormbreath, primarily, and Planeswalkers. Yeah. Erase is good for the Ascendancy decks, Banishing Light, things like that.
Comes in against Whip again.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
How is your matchup against Whip?
It's fine. Main decking Whip is
main decking
Hushwing Griff makes it so that Whip decks are not as good. And it's still hard. You know, if you don't get the Griff, it's hard. But main decking it makes it so that, you know, when they're not expecting you with 3 mana open, they're saying, all right, I'm going to jam my Hornet Queen and I'm going to win, because that's basically what happens with normal Mardu. You jam that instead, and then you're good to go. Like, I had a game earlier where I played against Abzan aggro, and I had Hushwing Griff out, and he stopped a Siege Rhino trigger and 2 Wingmate Rocks. And that's Value City. Yeah, that's Value City.
Over a 2/1 flyer that I'm guessing it dealt at least 6 points of damage?
At least, yeah. So that oftentimes comes in against the whip decks.
The 4th Mardu Charm against
Mono red really has a hard. This deck has a really hard time with mono red. Also, will come in against if you just need more removal that doesn't have to be specific. Say you're playing against mid range. You bring in the 4th Mardu Charm and a couple of Heroes Downfall, and the Glare Heresy against Abzan mid range. Because it's just you need variety. You need variety removal. We got 1 Utter End, which is really good on the draw against the mid-range decks. It allows you to answer pretty much anything.
Yep.
And the 3 Arc Lightning are for the aggro strategies, primarily mono red.
Mono red. So mono red is
that's one of the biggest
matchup.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
For the deck, but you really only need to see 1 or 2 of Mardu Charm or Arc Lightning, and you run Lightning Strike in the main board, so it makes it alright.
So you just essentially outlast them.
That's the idea. Yeah. Kind of.
Swing Griff, swing, kill your dudes, swing.
That's the idea.
All right. Well, I really enjoy this deck. I've enjoyed watching you play it. I hope you keep playing it.
Oh, thank you.
And I hope, no offense, but I hope somebody brings it down and tries it out.
Someday.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.